Forbidden Moon. My stepmother forbids me going to the mating ceremony, but he found me anyway. Before we begin our paranormal romance, don't forget to subscribe so you can get more of our stories. Forbidden Moon, Part 1. The mirror cracked under Sibyl's trembling fingers as she stared at her reflection, barely recognizing the hollow-eyed girl looking back. Tonight was the harvest moon ceremony, the night every unmated wolf in the territory would gather under the ancient oak to find their destined partner. At 19, she should have been preparing with the other young females, adorning herself in ceremonial silks and moon-blessed oils. Instead, she was locked in the servants' quarters like a prisoner. "You will not disgrace this family any further," her stepmother Raina had hissed earlier, her perfectly manicured nails digging crescents into Sibyl's wrist. "A bastard half-blood has no place among the pure-born. You'll stay here and tend to the washing." The words still burned. Half-blood. As if her mother's human heritage somehow made her less worthy of love, less deserving of the goddess's blessing. Sibyl's wolf whimpered inside her chest, a sound that had grown weaker with each passing moon of suppression and shame. Through the narrow window, she could see the other families preparing. Young wolves laughed and called to each other as they made their way toward Moon Valley Ridge, their excitement crackling through the autumn air like electricity. The Frostpaw banner fluttered from their estate's gates, and Sibyl caught glimpses of her stepsister Carrie being fussed over by seamstresses, her silver dress catching moonlight like captured starfire. Carrie would find her mate tonight. Everyone said so. The daughter of the former Beta, blessed with pure bloodlines and her mother's cruel beauty, she was destined for greatness. Perhaps even the Alpha himself would choose her. A sob caught in Sibyl's throat. She pressed her forehead against the cool glass, watching the procession of hope and possibility that she was forbidden from joining. The moon called to her wolf, ancient and insistent, but Raina's words echoed louder, "Know your place." Her place. Apparently, that was scrubbing floors and living in the shadows while others found their forever. The injustice of it burned hotter than wolf fire in her veins. Outside, a horn sounded 3 times, the ceremony was beginning. Soon, the unmated wolves would shift under the goddess's light, their true selves revealed as they searched for the one whose souls sang in harmony with their own. Legend said you would know your mate instantly, that the bond would snap into place like a missing piece of yourself finally found. Sibyl would never know that feeling. She would die alone, mateless, forgotten. The sound of her stepmother's heels clicking down the hallway made Sibyl's stomach clench. She quickly moved away from the window, grabbing a washcloth to make it look like she'd been working. The door's lock turned with a sharp click. "Still mooning over what you can't have?" Raina Frostpaw stepped into the cramped room, resplendent in midnight blue silk that made her silver hair gleam like metal. Behind her lurked Cryan, the pack's enforcer, his scarred face impassive. How pathetic. "I was just lying." Raina's amber eyes flashed with cruel amusement. "Did you really think I wouldn't smell your tears? Your desperate longing?" She circled Sibyl like a predator, her power radiating outward in suffocating waves. "Let me make something clear, little bastard. Even if you somehow escaped this room, even if you managed to reach the ceremony, no true wolf would want you. Your tainted blood ensures that." The words hit like physical blows, but Sibyl forced herself to remain standing. She'd learned long ago that showing weakness only encouraged Raina's sadism. "Nothing to say?" Raina smiled, the expression sharp as winter wind. "Good. You're finally learning. Cryan will remain outside your door tonight. Any attempt to leave will result in consequences. Do I make myself clear?" Sibyl nodded, not trusting her voice. "Excellent. Come, Cryan. We have a ceremony to attend." Raina swept toward the door, then paused. "Oh, and Sibyl? When Carrie returns tomorrow with her mate, undoubtedly someone of importance, you'll congratulate her properly. With gratitude that this family tolerates your presence at all." The door slammed shut. The lock clicked. Heavy footsteps planted themselves just outside. Sibyl sank onto the narrow cot that served as her bed, finally allowing the tears to fall. Through the walls, she could hear the other servants chattering excitedly as they finished their duties and prepared to attend the ceremony themselves. Even they, with their lower status, had more freedom than her. The moon climbed higher, its silver light streaming through her window like a beckoning hand. Her wolf stirred restlessly, sensing the sacred time approaching. Every instinct screamed at her to run toward the ridge, to answer the ancient call, to claim her birthright as a daughter of both moon and earth. But she was trapped. Again. Always. Hours passed like centuries. The sounds from outside gradually faded as the last stragglers made their way to Moon Valley Ridge. Sibyl lay on her cot, staring at the ceiling and trying to ignore the way her wolf clawed at her ribs, desperate for freedom. The bond between human and wolf was sacred, to deny one was to wound both. Cryan's breathing had settled into the rhythm of sleep sometime after midnight. The big enforcer was loyal to Reyna, but he wasn't cruel by nature. Just following orders, like everyone else in the Frostpaw pack seemed to do. The ceremony would be reaching its peak now. Under the full moon's blessing, wolves would be shifting, their true forms revealed as they searched for their other half. The thought made her chest ache with a longing so sharp it stole her breath. A sound at her window made her freeze. Tap. 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 She turned her head, heart hammering. 3 floors up, there should be nothing that could reach her window. Nothing except. A massive shadow blocked out the moonlight. Golden eyes stared through the glass, ancient and knowing and somehow familiar. The wolf was enormous, easily twice the size of any she'd seen before, with fur so dark it seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Silver markings traced along his chest and throat like ceremonial paint. Their eyes met through the glass, and the world tilted. Mate. The word echoed through her mind, her soul, her very bones. Not her own thought, his. The wolf pressed one massive paw against the window, and she could feel his need, his desperate search, his relief at finding her rolling through her in waves. With trembling hands, she unlatched the window. Cool night air rushed in, carrying the scent of pine and rain and something indefinably wild. The wolf's muzzle pushed through the opening, and she reached out instinctively to touch the soft fur between his ears. The moment skin met fur, lightning struck. The mating bond snapped into place with the force of a breaking dam, flooding her with sensations and emotions that weren't her own. Strength. Protectiveness. A love so fierce it took her breath away. And underneath it all, an authority that spoke of dominance, of leadership. Alpha. Her mate was the alpha. The wolf pulled back suddenly, his form shimmering in the moonlight. Bones cracked and reformed, fur receded, and within moments a man crouched on the narrow stone ledge outside her window. He was magnificent. Tall and broad-shouldered, with the same dark hair as his wolf and those piercing golden eyes. His skin was bronzed from sun and wind, marked with scars that spoke of battles fought and won. When he spoke, his voice was rough velvet, barely above a whisper. "I've been searching for you." Cole Stormhowl, alpha of the Moon Valley Walkers, reached through the window to cup her face with hands that trembled despite their strength. "I could feel you calling to me, but I couldn't find you. Why aren't you at the ceremony?" The words stuck in her throat. How could she explain? That her stepmother considered her unworthy? That she was locked away like some shameful secret? His nostrils flared slightly, and his expression darkened. "You're afraid. And there's another's scent on you, fear and pain." His grip tightened protectively. "Who hurt you?" "It doesn't matter." She leaned into his touch, marveling at how right it felt. The bond hummed between them, filling all the hollow places in her soul. "You're here now. It matters to me." His voice carried the rumble of an alpha's authority. "You're my mate. My Luna. Anyone who harms you answers to me." Luna. The word sent shivers through her. She would be Luna of the Moon Valley Walkers. The most powerful pack in 3 territories. Her, the bastard half-blood who wasn't even allowed to attend the ceremony. "I can't." The admission tore from her throat. "My stepmother, she says I'm not worthy. That my human blood makes me weak, tainted. I don't even know if I can shift properly. What if I'm not strong enough to be your Luna? Cole's eyes blazed with fury that made her wolf whimper in submission. But when he spoke, his voice was gentle. Look at me, little wolf. She raised her eyes to his. The moon goddess doesn't make mistakes. She chose you for me, and me for you. Your blood, human or wolf, doesn't define your worth. Your strength does. Your heart does. He climbed through the window with fluid grace, filling the small room with his presence. Even in human form, his wolf was close to the surface, radiating power and protection. What's your name? He asked softly, brushing tears from her cheeks. Sibyl. The name felt different on her tongue now, less like a burden and more like an identity she could claim. Sibyl. He repeated it like a prayer. My Sibyl. You're coming with me. I can't. She gestured toward the door. There's a guard. And Raina, she'll never let me leave. Cole's smile was sharp as a blade. She doesn't have a choice. Forbidden Moon, Part 2. He moved to the door with predatory silence, pressing his ear against the wood. After a moment, he nodded to himself and turned back to her. The guard is still asleep. We have a small window. But if we're caught, we won't be. His confidence was absolute, the certainty of an alpha who had never known defeat. Trust me. Sibyl looked around the cramped room that had been her prison for so long. Everything she owned could fit in a single bag, not that she had much worth taking. A few worn dresses, her mother's silver locket, and a journal filled with dreams she'd never dared speak aloud. I don't have anything to wear to a ceremony, she whispered, suddenly aware of her plain servant's dress and tangled hair. Cole's expression softened. You're perfect exactly as you are. But if it makes you feel better. He shrugged off his ceremonial cloak, the deep forest green fabric gleaming with silver threading. When he draped it around her shoulders, it fell nearly to her feet, transforming her instantly. There. Now you look like the Luna you were born to be. The weight of the cloak settled around her like destiny itself. Through the bond, she felt his pride, his fierce protectiveness, his unwavering belief in her worth. For the first time in her life, she felt truly seen. Are you ready? He offered his hand. She stared at it, strong and scarred and reaching for her despite everything that made her unworthy. Taking it would change everything. There would be no going back to the safety of invisibility, no more hiding in the shadows. But there would also be no more loneliness, no more shame, no more wondering if she'd ever be enough. Sibyl placed her hand in his. The moment their fingers intertwined, her wolf sang with joy. Cole smiled, the first genuinely warm expression she'd seen from him, and lifted their joined hands to his lips. Forever, he murmured against her knuckles. Forever, she echoed, and meant it. They moved like ghosts through the sleeping house. Cole's alpha senses guided them past creaking floorboards and around corners where moonlight might expose them. More than once, Sibyl was certain they'd be caught, but somehow they remained undetected. It wasn't until they reached the kitchen's back door that disaster struck. Well. Raina's voice cut through the darkness like ice. What do we have here? Light blazed suddenly as several torches flared to life. Raina stood in the doorway to the main house, still dressed in her ceremony finery, flanked by Cryan and 2 other enforcers. Her amber eyes glittered with malicious triumph. I had a feeling you might try something foolish, she continued, stepping into the kitchen. Though I admit, I didn't expect you to drag some poor male into your delusions. Cole moved slightly in front of Sibyl, his posture shifting from protective to threatening. The temperature in the room seemed to drop as his wolf rose to the surface. You must be the stepmother, he said quietly. I can smell the cruelty on you. Raina's laugh was brittle as winter branches. Cruelty? I prefer to call it reality. This girl has filled your head with fantasies, hasn't she? Let me guess, she told you she was unmated, available, worthy of attention? Her gaze flicked dismissively over Sibyl. She's a bastard half-blood with delusions of grandeur. I'm saving you from making a terrible mistake. The only mistake, Cole said, his voice dropping to a growl, is yours. Something in his tone made Raina pause. Her nostrils flared as she caught his scent properly for the first time, and her face went pale. She swallowed hard. You're Alpha Cole Stormhowl of the Moon Valley Walkers. He let his power unfurl, filling the kitchen with the unmistakable aura of leadership. Even Cryan stepped back instinctively. And this woman is my mate. The words hit Raina like physical blows. Her mouth opened and closed soundlessly as the implications crashed over her. If Sibyl was the Alpha's mate, she would be Luna, not just of any pack, but of the most powerful pack in the territories. Everything Raina had done, every cruelty she'd inflicted, would come back to haunt her tenfold. That's impossible, she whispered. She can't be. The moon goddess wouldn't choose a half-blood for someone like you. There must be some mistake. The moon goddess doesn't make mistakes. Cole's eyes blazed gold with barely contained wolf. But you've made many. Starting with laying hands on what belongs to me. After a tense confrontation where Raina tried desperately to manipulate the situation, Sibyl finally stood up for herself, choosing to leave her birth pack forever to join Cole's Moon Valley Walkers. Despite Raina's final cruel words trying to plant seeds of doubt, Cole's unwavering support gave Sibyl strength. They escaped into the night, where Cole encouraged Sibyl to attempt her first full shift under the moonlight. To both their joy, she transformed beautifully into a magnificent silver wolf, proving that her mixed heritage was a strength, not a weakness. However, their celebration was short-lived. Urgent howls from Moon Valley Ridge called them to a crisis. The ceremonial grounds were in chaos, and a massive wolf with rust-red fur stood at the center of the destruction. As they crested the final hill, the scene below made Sibyl's blood run cold. The ceremonial grounds were in shambles. Ancient stone altars lay cracked and broken, sacred fires scattered into dangerous embers. Wolves ran in all directions, some in human form, some shifted, all radiating fear and confusion. And in the center of it all stood a figure that made Sibyl's wolf whimper in recognition. Blood Rose howlers, Cole growled through their bond. What are they doing here? The pack's alpha was a brute of a man named Cryan Moonblade, different from the enforcer at the Frostpaw house. This one bore the ritual scars of the Blood Rose pack across his chest and arms, marking him as their leader. His wolf was rust-red and massive, with eyes like burning coals. Around him, his wolves held the Moon Valley Walkers at bay. Not through force, though they were clearly prepared for violence, but through the ancient laws of challenge. Cole Stormhowl, the Blood Rose Alpha called out, his voice carrying across the devastated ceremonial ground. I invoke the right of formal challenge. Your pack has grown too powerful, claimed too much territory. It's time for new leadership. A formal challenge. Sibyl's heart sank as she understood the implications. By ancient law, any alpha could challenge another for leadership of their pack. The challenged alpha couldn't refuse without forfeiting his position entirely. It was a fight to the death, winner takes all. Cole shifted beneath her, his muscles coiling with tension. Get down, he told her. This is about to get very dangerous. She slid from his back, her legs unsteady on the torn earth. Around them, the Moon Valley Walkers were gathering, a sea of concerned faces looking to their alpha for guidance. She spotted several she didn't recognize, powerful-looking wolves who carried themselves with the confidence of experienced fighters. Cole shifted back to human form, rising to his full impressive height. The Blood Rose Howlers have no grounds for challenge, Cryan Moonblade. We've honored all territorial agreements. Have you? Cryan smiled, showing teeth filed to points in the old style. Then explain why you've been courting allies among the spirit pack. Why your scouts have been seen mapping routes through neutral territory. Why you've claimed a Luna without consulting the Council of Alphas. The last accusation hit like a physical blow. Sibyl felt every eye in the clearing turn toward her, assessing, judging. Some faces showed curiosity, others concern. A few displayed open hostility. She was the reason for this challenge. Her mating to Cole had shifted the balance of power, and the Blood Rose Howlers meant to stop it before it could solidify. My mating is my own affair, Cole said dangerously. Not when it threatens the stability of all our territories. Cryan's gaze fixed on Sibyl with calculating coldness. A half-blood, Luna? The other packs will never accept it. You're asking for war, Stormhowl. Then perhaps, said a new voice from the edge of the clearing, we should ask the lady herself what she thinks. All heads turned toward the speaker, an elderly woman with silver-streaked hair and eyes like winter storms. She moved through the crowd with the fluid grace of someone who had never known fear, and the assembled wolves parted before her like water before a ship's bow. Elder Sage, Cole said, inclining his head respectfully. I didn't expect to see you here tonight. The moon called me, she replied simply. As did the scent of destiny being forged. Her ancient gaze fixed on Sibyl with an intensity that made her want to hide behind Cole. So you're the one causing all this fuss. Faced with this legendary figure, the high priestess who had served as spiritual advisor to 3 generations of Alphas, Sibyl found her voice and spoke with growing confidence, ultimately challenging Cryan's motivations and pointing out that he seemed more afraid of her potential strength than her supposed weakness. This led to Cryan accepting Cole's counter-challenge to single combat, but Sibyl invoked an ancient right allowing her to take Cole's place in a trial by ordeal, 3 tests to prove her worthiness as Luna. Elder Sage confirmed her right to do this, and despite Cole's protests, Sibyl chose to face the trials rather than risk losing him to combat. The trials were set to begin at dawn, and as the crowd dispersed, Cole held Sibyl close, both of them knowing that the next day would determine not just their future together, but the fate of their entire pack. Why? He asked simply. She smiled, reaching up to cup his face with trembling fingers. Because you're worth fighting for. Because your pack deserves better than to lose their alpha to political games. And because for the first time in my life, I have something worth proving. He pulled her against his chest, his arms wrapping around her like a shield against the world. I love you, he whispered fiercely. Whatever happens tomorrow, remember that. Forever, she whispered back. But even as she spoke the word, dawn seemed impossibly far away. Forbidden Moon, Part 3. The hours before sunrise crawled by like wounded animals. Cole had arranged for Sibyl to rest in his private den, a cave system carved into the cliff face overlooking Moon Valley territory. But sleep proved elusive with her mind churning over what lay ahead. When dawn broke, Sibyl emerged to find the clearing transformed. Representatives from every major pack in 3 territories had gathered to witness this unprecedented event. Elder Sage stood at the center, now wearing robes of deep purple embroidered with silver wolves, carrying a staff topped with crystal that seemed to hold captured moonlight. Luna Sibyl, she called formally. Are you prepared to face the trials? I am, Sibyl replied, proud that her voice didn't shake. Then let the first trial begin. Trial of strength, prove your body worthy to lead. Ancient stones rose from the earth, forming 3 challenges. A massive boulder to be moved, an impossibly high cliff to be climbed, and most terrifying of all, a pit filled with silver-tinted water that would burn any werewolf who touched it. Sibyl approached the first challenge, calling on her wolf to achieve a hybrid form that combined human intelligence with wolf strength. She successfully moved the boulder, then climbed the treacherous cliff face despite bleeding fingers and screaming muscles. The final challenge nearly killed her. She dove into the silver water, agony personified for any werewolf, to retrieve a sacred stone from the bottom. Her mixed heritage proved to be salvation, while her wolf side retreated from the poison. Her human side had just enough resistance to allow her to complete the task. The trial of strength is complete, Elder Sage announced. Let the trial of wisdom begin. 3 objects appeared on a wooden table. A silver chalice containing the water of truth, a golden key that could open any lock, and a scroll listing 3 people who would betray her within the year. Each offered power, but also carried a terrible price. The chalice would give her any answer but make her carry the burden of painful truths. The key would open any door but violated free will. The scroll would prevent betrayals but poison her relationships with suspicion. After careful consideration, Sibyl made a choice that surprised everyone. I choose none of them. She explained that true wisdom wasn't about controlling every outcome, but about trusting others to make their own choices. A leader needed to inspire loyalty, not compel it through force or manipulation. Elder Sage smiled with genuine warmth. Wisdom indeed. To refuse power when it's offered freely, that is the mark of one fit to wield it. The trial of wisdom is complete. For the final trial, Sibyl had to journey alone into the sacred grove, where she would face the deepest truth of her own heart. In that mystical place, she encountered a vision of her deceased mother, who helped her finally accept all aspects of herself, wolf and human, servant and Luna, frightened girl and brave woman. When Sibyl emerged from the grove, she walked differently, with confidence and self-acceptance she'd never possessed before. The trials are complete, Elder Sage announced to the assembled crowd. Luna Sibyl has proven herself worthy in body, mind, and spirit. The challenge is void. But Cryan Moonblade refused to accept this outcome, raging about tainted bloodlines and questioning the goddess's choice. His blasphemy shocked the crowd, but before Elder Sage could respond, Sibyl stepped forward with unexpected compassion. She began asking Cryan about his daughter Lyra, who had supposedly been murdered by someone from Cole's pack. As Cryan spoke about his beloved daughter, a healer who dreamed of helping wolves from all packs, Sibyl began to piece together inconsistencies in the murder case. The investigation revealed that Beric Bloodclaw, the Beta's son, was the real killer. He had murdered Lyra to frame the Moon Valley Walkers and prevent a peace treaty between the packs, wanting to preserve what he saw as werewolf purity against the growing cooperation between different groups. After Beric's confession and execution, Cryan was overcome with grief and shame for nearly starting a war over lies. He pledged his pack's loyalty to Sibyl and Cole, creating a powerful alliance that would honor his daughter's memory by bringing unity where there had been division. 3 years later. The autumn moon hung full and bright over Moon Valley Ridge, casting silver light across the gathered wolves below. But this ceremony was different from the one 3 years ago. Instead of desperate searching and political challenges, tonight was filled with pure celebration. Sibyl stood at the edge of the ceremonial circle, watching as young wolves from 3 allied packs mingled freely, their laughter carrying on the crisp air. The Moon Valley Walkers, Bloodrose Howlers, and Spirit Pack had become more than allies. They were family, united in ways that would have been impossible under the old isolationist traditions. The Healers Academy graduates its first class next month, Cole said, approaching with 2 cups of mulled wine. His hair was longer now, touched with silver at the temples that only made his golden eyes more striking. Lyra would be so proud. Sibyl accepted the wine gratefully, leaning into his warmth. The academy had been her first major initiative as Luna, a place where wolves from all packs could learn healing arts together, breaking down the barriers that had kept them apart for generations. Any word from the human delegation? She asked. They arrive tomorrow. The mayor seems genuinely interested in the mutual aid treaty. Cole's arm tightened around her waist. It had been Sibyl's idea to reach out to the nearby human settlements. Her mixed heritage allowed her to understand both worlds in ways that pure-blood wolves couldn't, and she'd used that understanding to build bridges where there had once been only fear and mistrust. Mama. Papa. A small voice called across the clearing, followed by the sound of running feet. Their daughter burst from the crowd, her dark hair wild with excitement. At 5 years old, little Luna was already showing signs of the same fierce spirit that had carried her mother through the trials. Her wolf was strong, stronger than many purebloods, but she had inherited Sibyl's compassionate heart. The ceremony starting. Luna announced, bouncing on her toes. Can we watch from the front? Please. Of course, little wolf, Cole scooped her up, settling her on his shoulders. Your mama was Luna here once. I think that earns us good seats. As they made their way toward the front of the crowd, Sibyl caught sight of a familiar figure near the edge of the gathering. Carrie stood alone, her beautiful face marked by lines of bitterness and disappointment. She'd never found her mate that night 3 years ago, never found the happiness she'd been so certain was her birthright. For a moment, their eyes met across the crowd. There was old resentment there, but also something that might have been regret. Sibyl nodded respectfully. She bore no grudges, carried no anger for the cruelties of the past. She could join the academy, Cole said quietly, having followed Sibyl's gaze. The healing arts might give her purpose. She has to choose that for herself, Sibyl replied. We can offer opportunities, but we can't force acceptance. It was a lesson she'd learned well over the past 3 years. Leadership wasn't about controlling others, it was about creating space for them to become their best selves. Elder Sage, now ancient but still sharp as winter wind, raised her staff to begin the ceremony. Young wolves stepped forward eagerly, ready to find their mates under the goddess's blessing. Do you ever regret it? Cole asked softly. The way we met, the trials, all the pain that came before? Sibyl considered the question, watching the young wolves prepare for the most important moment of their lives. She thought of the locked room, the cruel words, the fear that had nearly consumed her. Then she looked at her daughter laughing on her father's shoulders, at the allied pack celebrating together, at the future they'd built from the ashes of old hatreds. Never, she said firmly. Every scar led us here. Every trial made us stronger. Every moment of darkness made the light that much brighter. The ceremony began in earnest, wolves shifting and calling to their mates under the full moon's blessing. But Sibyl found herself thinking not of the past or the future, but of this perfect moment, surrounded by love, accepted by her people, at peace with herself and her place in the world. She had been forbidden from attending her own mating ceremony, told she wasn't worthy of the goddess's blessing. But the goddess had found her anyway, bringing her exactly the mate and the life she needed. Sometimes the best destinies were the ones that found you in the darkness and led you home. As the first mating bonds of the evening snapped into place, filling the air with joyous howls, Sibyl Stormhowl smiled and pulled her family closer. Her story had begun with rejection and shame, but it had grown into something beautiful, a tale of love conquering fear, of acceptance triumphing over prejudice, of a half-blood girl who became everything she was meant to be. And in the years to come, when young wolves felt lost or unwanted, they would hear her story and know that the goddess's love was big enough for everyone, even those the world had forgotten. The moon shone down on them all, blessing the matches being made, the alliances being forged, and the love that would carry them forward into whatever tomorrow might bring. Forever and always, under the eternal light of the moon. The end.